is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, authorities are struggling as the Philippine National Police hotline is flooded with misinformation about Pastor ACQ. This follows the Department of the Interior and local government's announcement of a 10 million peso bounty for anyone who can provide information on the good pastor's whereabouts. In the other news, former NTF-ELCAC officials are urging Congress to take action against France Castro after a court ruled that she is guilty of child abuse. Meanwhile, lawyers of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ dissect the violations and suppression of rights committed by the Marcos Jr. administration against Pastor ACQ. The legal counsel also pointed out all the controversies and anomalies surrounding the 10 million pesos bounty for Pastor Apollo's capture. We'll find out more about this later. For our top global stories, South Korea moves to upgrade its relations with the United States to nuclear-based, further aggravating tensions between North Korea and Russia. And US President Joe Biden admits his bullseye comment against Donald Trump was a mistake, amid speculations that his words have something to do with the assassination attempt against former US President. I'm Frederico Velloso. Newsline World starts now. First in the news, the PNP is now struggling to verify the information it has received regarding the whereabouts of Pastor ACQ and 4 other accused individuals after the DILG publicized a 10 million peso reward money for anyone who can provide their location. Paul Montibon reports.
Now let us hear
The Philippine National Police is struggling to face a major challenge after the Department of Interior and local government announced the multi-million peso reward for anyone who can provide information on the whereabouts of Pastor ACQ. The PNP hotline is almost flooded due to the sheer volume of information they are receiving, with many claiming to know the good pastor's whereabouts. Most of the information are either incorrect or needs to be validated to ensure that the supposed tipsters are not just making false claims.
Marami po kaming information na dumadetect po sa amin. Ang inabol ko lang, we need to sort it out kasi baka mali-mali naman yung ano eh. Kami kasi nagsusumbong ngayon eh. When the SILG announced sa may reward, ay nagpatong-patong na ng information. Ang hirap kasi kung na-overload kami. Ano ba yung kung talagang tunay o hindi? Kasi minsan, these people baka lalo na makasira.
To recall, the PNP and Benhur Ablos of the DILG boasted about the support of private individuals for Pastor Apollo's capture. Despite the statements issued by the KOJC legal team, Ablos maintains that there was nothing wrong with their actions.
Baka nakulangan lang siguro ng research po si Secretary Abalos. Kung mabasa natin yung Section 7D ng Republic Act 6713, swak na swak talaga siya. Because whatever may be your intention, it may be motivated by good faith or whatever, you cannot accept private donations in order to make the life of another person miserable, even if it is supposedly for a legal purpose.
It is noticeable that the PNP has repeatedly blundered their attempts to apprehend Pastor Apollo. Was it not illegal for armed police officers to attack the religious compounds of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ in Davao City and Sarangani Province on the 10th of June, even without a search warrant? The violent armed authorities also damaged properties and harmed defenseless church missionaries. And what was the result? Severe trauma and anxiety suffered by children and the elderly. What's even worse, 2 members of the Blaan community died following the severe fear and trauma they experienced in the violent attack. And now, Abalos' irresponsible acceptance of the supposed donations from private individuals he calls friends. The 10 million pesos were donated to be used as bounty for the capture of Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. Recently, the police also lied when they denied arresting Pauline Canada, a co-accused of Pastor Apollo. The police's mistake, however, was evident as Canada's abduction was caught on video, so they couldn't deny it. All of this is clearly part of continuous harassment and oppression against Pastor Apollo and the Kingdom of Jesus Christ. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, reporting Paul Montebon, SMNI News.
The National Youth Commission welcomed the Tagun Court's decision regarding two personalities known to be part of the communist terrorist group CPP and PNDF. MJ Mondahar reports.
Tayo ay nagagalak sa desisyon ng korte na makasuhan yung mga kongresista na yan.
ACT Teachers Representative France Castro, former Bayan Muna Representative Saturo Campo, and 11 others were sentenced to up to 6 years in prison by the Tagum City Court for allegedly violating the law against child abuse. ACT Teachers and Bayan Muna were previously identified by former President Rodrigo Duterte as legal fronts of the CPP and PANDF and the House of Representatives. Therefore, according to National Youth Commission Chairman Ronald Cardema, the truth has finally come out that Castro and the Makabayan Bloc are recruiting the youth to become NPA members.
Talagang tumagal yung panahon na inalam mismo nung huwes kung ano yung detalye lamang, walang exaggeration sa mga kwento. At mula doon, nagdesisyon sila na ito talagang dating kongresista ng Bayan Muna at incumbent na kongresista ng ACT Teachers na nagpapakilalang kinatawan ng mga guru sa Pilipinas, talagang sila, guilty sila beyond reasonable doubt.
Cardema further emphasized that Castro and other legal fronts in the House can no longer hide behind the excuse of red tagging. It is clear now from the court's decision that they are guilty under the law. The conviction of Castro and Ocampo stemmed from proven accusations that they took minors on a solidarity mission in Talaingo, Davao del Norte sometime in November 2018. For the military that arrested them, the suspects committed human trafficking. Because of this, Cardema's office is now working with the Duterte Youth Party list to remove Castro as a congresswoman. A significant reason for this is her conviction in the child abuse case. They will then appeal to the House Ethics Committee when the session resumes next week to finalize the action.
Talaga namang dapat matanggal sa Kongreso yung mga ganyang kakapal ng mukha. Yan ba yung nagkaso kay dating Pangulong Duterte ng grave threat? Ito yung sinasabi kong matagal na. Siya ang grave threat sa kabataang Pilipino.
For Ganwebel of Philippines, MJ Mondahar, SMNI News.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines calls the circulating information about generals allegedly walking out during a recent command conference as fake news. However, this information has been supported by former government officials. Omar Fosuelo will give us the details.
Yung walkout incident. If you're referring to the command conference, that's fake news, no? I was there personally. There's nothing of that sort that happened.
This was the statement of Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla, spokesperson of the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP, regarding the circulating information that some AFP generals walked out during the command conference at the General Headquarters in Camp Aguinaldo, Quezon City on July 4, 2024. The said command conference, according to Padilla, was attended by President Bongbong Marcos. The discussion includes updates on the campaigns and programs of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Padilla clarified that there was no walkout among the generals and the command conference was orderly and professional.
It was a very professional change of ideas and discussion, and there was also a lot of updates that was given. It was all positive, ended in a positive note.
Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad, spokesperson of the Philippine Navy for the West Philippine Sea, said the issue is purely fabricated.
That is 50% fabrication, 50% imagination, 100% false. The AFP, senior officers, and the entire organization for that matter conducts itself with the highest level of professionalism.
The issue of some generals allegedly walking out during the command conference was supported by some former officials, including Jose Alejandrino, the former presidential consultant during the time of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Alejandrino said that he also received the said information and mentioned that some junior officers are dissatisfied with the current government and that the AFP needs to wake up. According to retired Army Brigadier General Johnny Macanas, if the reports of generals walking out are true, it is a good occurrence because it shows that someone is standing up for what is right.
Ito yung hindi nababayaran, ito yung tunay na PMAR, courage, loyalty, integrity. Itong general na ito handang marilib. Hindi niya na matanggap yung takbo ng discussion siguro. Labag na sa kanyang pinapaniwalaan na tama, kanyang prinsipyo.
Meanwhile, the AFP insists that their chain of command remains intact.
The chain of command is intact. We have very good and robust working relationships with higher headquarters, especially the Department of National Defense. Again, the AFP is a professional organization. We conduct ourselves with the highest level of professionalism. The chain of command is intact.
In the end, the AFP advises the public.
Let us be very careful in picking up stories and check on the veracity, especially of the source.
For God and my beloved Philippines, Almar Forzuelo, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, 5 high-ranking officials of the Department of Education resigned weeks after Vice President Sara Duterte stepped down as Education Secretary. According to a political strategist, this is one reason why VP Sara won't attend President Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s State of the Nation address. Jason Rubrico reports.
Among the Department of Education officials who submitted their resignations are Undersecretary and Chief of Staff Michael Poa, Undersecretary for Administration Nolasco Memfin, Assistant Secretary Sunshine Fajarda, Assistant Secretary for Procurement Reynold Munsayak, and Assistant Secretary for Administration Noel Baluyan. According to Poa, it is only appropriate to give incoming DepEd Secretary Sonny Angara the freedom to choose the people who will be part of his agency. When asked if he will still serve under Vice President Sara Duterte's leadership, Poa said he will wait for any instructions from the Vice President. The resignation of said officials will be effective on July 19, 2024. There is still no clear reason why VP Sara resigned as DepEd Secretary. But according to a political analyst, her resignation could be a reason why Vice President Sara Duterte won't attend President Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s third State of the Nation address.
Haharap ka ba sa SONA na ikaw ay nag-resign na at sinabi mo ng June 12 na ang unit team ay pang-eleksyon lamang at ng June 19 ikaw ay nagsabi na ako ay nagre-resign sa DepEd.
Piquia also suggested that a possible reason for the Vice President's decision is the poor treatment she received from the Marcos administration.
Attend ka ba sa SONA na hindi ka naman trinato ng maayos nitong administrasyon na ito? Bakit kasi siksik sa isang administrasyon na binabastos ka?
Correct.
So, akin tamang-tama yung ginawa niya ngayon.
As for congressmen questioning Vice President Sara's decision not to attend the SONA and claiming she lacks maturity, Piquia responded,
Hindi yan sign ng maturity yung sinabi ng isang congressman. Si Vice Presidente daw ay walang maturity. Alam mo, ang maturity is the sum total of her acts. Hindi yung isang desisyon na hindi pagpunta sa third State of the Nation address. Yung mga kongresista, ang inyong mandato siguro mga 250,000 per district. Si Vice President 32 million. Huwag naman yung pahiyain na gano'n, di ba? At karapatan ng Vice Presidente, kung ayaw niya umattend, hindi siya a-attend.
For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubico, SMNI News.
The Kingdom of Jesus Christ camp vehemently opposed President Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s remarks against Pastor Apollo ACQ regarding the controversial 10 million peso bounty placed on the pastor. Ina Mortel reports.
At the most recent press conference of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, the violations of law committed by President Bongbong Marcos Jr. were thoroughly discussed. This followed his statement about the KOJC questioning the 10 million pesos bounty offered by the DILG for anyone who could point out the whereabouts of Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. After a month since the armed PNP staff and CIDG raided the religious compounds of KOJC on June 10, 2024, Marcos broke his silence. However, instead of condemning the illegal and violent police raid, he defended Interior Secretary Benhur Abalos. He said there was no issue if the government received money from private individuals just to determine the location of Pastor Apollo and 5 other accused individuals. However, the legal counsel of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio, responded.
Mr. President, if you do not see something wrong with what has been done, then there is something wrong with you.
According to Topacio, the bounty is wrong in any manner.
May pinatay ba si Pastor Kibuloy? Are these crimes, even assuming na may probable cause, are they violent crimes? Bakit 10 milyon? Under the Constitution which you swore to implement as President, as Chief Executive, as the main person tasked to implement all the laws of the country. Equal protection, every person similarly situated should be treated in the same manner. Bakit yung pumatay ng 25 tao, 1.3? Bakit ito po walang pinatay? 10 milyon. 10 milyon. Pribado pa. So, this is so wrong on so many levels.
Topacio was referring to the wanted MILF leader Commander Wahad Gara for his multiple murder cases in the 2008 attacks in Lanao del Norte that led to the deaths of more than 20 civilians, soldiers, and police officers. However, Gara's bounty was only over 1 million pesos. Meanwhile, Attorney Israelito Torion emphasized that KOJC has the right to question such actions of the Marcos administration.
We have the right to question that because the entire purpose of Republic Act 6713 is really to promote the saying that public office is a public trust. Tapos ni-research namin sa jurisprudence, connected pala ito sa RA 3019, no? Section 3C, no? Yung magkuha ka ng pondo from private sources, and the purpose of prohibiting this is really because of public trust.
RA 6713 refers to the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees, while RA 3019 is the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Torion also mentioned that it is very dangerous for the government not to disclose their sources for the bounty.
It is very dangerous on the part of public officers to not name your sources of funds. Kasi dito, baka foreign sources po ito. O baka galing sa Amerika ito, o galing ba sa ibang sources, sa left ba ito, o galing ba ito sa mga tao na may kailangan kay Secretary Abalos para ma-elect siya pagka senador, siguro.
In addition to the bounty issue, Torion also dissected the processes of the rape, qualified human trafficking, and child abuses cases against Pastor Apollo. He mentioned that these cases were dismissed on June 29, 2020 by the Davao City Prosecutor's Office. After the accuser filed a motion for reconsideration, it was still denied on November 23, 2020. However, on February 27, 2024, under the Marcos administration, the Department of Justice reversed the decision after almost 4 years and reopened the case, resulting in an arrest warrant against Pastor Apollo and 5 others. In response to Marcos' claim that they are just following the law, Torion said,
hindi naman siguro po pwede. The president will say, sinusundan lang namin ang batas. Yung kung batas para sa amin, hindi mo sundin. Kung sa'yo may warrant, gusto nyo na i-implement yun with full force of the law, maski grabe na masyado. Yung motion for reconsideration nga namin, hindi nyo inaksyonan Kasi para naman ma-prove ng aming kliyente na wala talaga siyang kasalanan, kung i-deny ninyo, okay lang sa amin, wala kaming problema doon. Pero aakyat kami sa Court of Appeals. Sigurado kami, kung makita ng Court of Appeals, ng naman pala itong kaso na ito, na-dismiss na ito, bigla na lang pinail. Baka mahiya sila pag makita yung ebidensya. At saka nakakahiya talaga kasi wala talagang probable cause. Because in the first place, we trusted you, Mr. President. We trusted you. Pastor Apollo ACQ trusted you. We elected you into office and you're supposed to perform your role as the foremost executive official of the land, and you should have implemented the laws that I have just cited.
It can be recalled that in the KOJC's press conference last Monday, they also discussed how the Marcos administration has weaponized the government agencies against Pastor Apollo, including the use of Congress on the issue of SMNI's franchise, which led to the arrest warrant against Pastor Apollo, as well as the Senate, following Risa Hontiveros' hearing on the accusations against the good pastor. And on June 10, 2024, the PNP staff and CIDG simultaneously raided the religious compounds without search warrants. Amid all of these, the KOJC remains steadfast in their prayer for justice and deliverance of the country from the hands of the leaders who abuse their power. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Ina Mortal, SMNI News.
The 10 million pesos bounty placed on Pastor Apollo ACQ by the DILG did not help resolve his case. Instead, it has endangered the life of the good pastor, according to the Kingdom of Jesus Christ Legal Counsel. Here's the report from Omar Forsuelo.
The lives of Pastor Apollo ACQ and the members of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ are now in danger. This is how former CPP NPA NTF cadre Jeffrey K. Eric Celis described the bounty placed by the Department of the Interior and Local Government against a spiritual leader of the KOJC. According to Celis, because of the bounty hunting promotion by Benhur Abalos, criminal groups have been given the opportunity to attack and carry out operations against innocent civilians.
Because of the spirit of encouragement of vigilantism at nagiging bounty hunting ang promosyon laban kay Pastor Kibuloy, ay marami pong mga criminal groups ang pwedeng pumatol na sakyan ito at gamitin sila ng pulis o ng establishment ng gobyerno para gawan ng karahasan si Pastor at i-justify ang karahasan na yon, including ang pagpatay kay Pastor at sa kaniyang mga ministro at ang pag-atake sa Kingdom of Jesus Christ compound na mga kriminal, pero yan ay instigated and premeditated because of an illegal and immoral bounty.
He added that even when the CPP NPA NDF's leader, Joma Sison, was still alive, they had already targeted the good pastor along with former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Matagal na po nilang tinatarget si Pastor Kibuloy and even si Pangulong Duterte. For one reason, sapagkat si Pastor Kibuloy po is the only high-profile personality na mayroong religious congregation at the same time may involvement sa isang very popular media na niyayakap ng tao na tumaya para labanan ng CPP, NPA, NDF. Undeniable po yon. At hindi po yan itinatago ni Joe Maciso ng buhay pa siya at pinapanawagan niya na targetin talaga si Pastor Kibuloy at si former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Ka-Eric's statement stemmed from the information received by KOJC that the NPA and retired uniform officials were allegedly planning to raid the KOJC religious compounds. For KOJC Legal Counsel Attorney Israelito Torion, while it is the government's mandate to enforce the law, it should still follow the proper process because we no longer live in the old times.
However noble may be your intention is, wala na po tayo sa panahon ng Clint Eastwood, yung sa Texas noon, na pag may bounty, may mga dala-dala na mga bounty hunters. Hindi po yan po pwede po dito because we are governed by law. And the arrest, as a general rule, can only be implemented by the police authorities. Yung citizen's arrest nga, supposedly, as a general rule, applies only in inflagrante delicto cases.
For Attorney Topacio, the 10 million peso bounty did not help. Instead, it endangered the life of Pastor Apollo.
If I may just add, yun nga ang puntos na ginawa ko, the point that I raised dun sa isang interview ko, by putting up such an unwarranted and unprecedentedly high bounty or reward, you make the subject of the warrant fair game for everyone who wants to earn 10 million. In other words, you put a target on his back. You endanger his life. Yun ang sinasabi ko. Di ba ayaw na ayaw nila?
Former NTF-ELCAC spokesperson Dr. Lorraine Badoy emphasized that President Bongbong Marcos has done nothing but destroy the law.
Yeah. Naalala ko nung pag-upo ni Pangulong Duterte, ang number one na priority niya ay tayo ay maging bansa na may mga batas, na sumusunod tayo sa batas. So now I'm seeing all of this and I can see yung vigilantism na sinasabi ni Attorney Torion, etc., ni Attorney Topacio, ni Eric, yung all that hard work of the Duterte administration is really going down the drain because of this president. Sinisira niya, winawasak niya ang mga institusyon natin at ang bansa natin, winawasak niya.
For God and beloved Philippines, Almar Forzuelo, SMNI News.
Several years have passed since the closure of the Salapuan schools in Talaingod, Davao del Norte, established by the communist terrorist group CPP-NP-NDF. Now, the indigenous people's community has an appeal to the Marcos administration. Here's the report from Hannah Jane Sancho.
The indigenous community of Talaingod wants nothing more than to ensure that their children have the opportunity to complete their education. But with parents believed to be education turned out to be a recruitment ground for the communist terrorist group CPP-NPA-NDF, where their innocent young minds were indoctrinated with wrong ideologies. For the indigenous community in Talaingod, Davao del Norte, having a school in their community is a significant blessing, especially since many of them either did not finish school or never had a chance to attend elementary school. When the Salugpungan school arrived in their community, they thought it would be the path to the long-desired education.
Sadya na ako nga nasilip yun nga ang Salugpungan suportado gid sa Partido Komunista. Diyan na ginahinay ang mga masa po nga murag na luya pa. Naluya na ka. Dili na ka kapinetrate silang mga bata kay gusto gid sila magpa-eskwela. Ang pangandoy gid sa mga ginikanan nga moabot sa kolehiyo ang ilang mga anak nga pinaagi sa Salugpungan.
The people of Talaingod are now appealing to the government to provide free schools for the youth of the IP community.
Ang panawagan na mo karon nga tagang gid gyapon mig libreng edukasyon sa atong gobyerno. Katong Salugpungan nga wala mato, katong Salugpungan nga wala nasirado na sa pagkakaroon, dapat tukuron sa DepEd.
Ang gusto namo nga legal na nga ang pagpamuyo namo dia og inubarat sa among mga bata. Ay kami dili nami gusto nga among mga anak ug sunod sa among mga apo pohon nga dili na makasunod sa mga isip mga tumidog diya sa lungsod sa Talaingod, wagid mi ka eskwela. Kay bisan ako sa tinuod lang, wagid ko ka eskwela bisag preschool lang sa akong pagkatao. So karon mao na akong ginabalik-balik yung hanyo nga manginaot gyud mi nga matuman ang among mga pagpangayo.
Meanwhile, former cadre Arian Jane Ramos has a challenge for the Marcos administration. If the leftist group could provide schools for the IP community in Talaingod, then there is no reason the government can't do the same thing.
And the reason why we surrendered is because we trust the government that they will really help us, or they will really help yung mga katutubo natin. And very basic po ang education. Kami po bilang mga kadre noon na matagal na nakalubog, naiintindihan po namin ang kultura ng ating mga katutubo. They have this special needs na hindi po siya pwedeng ilagay natin doon sa, i-compare natin doon sa normal na situation ng mga kabataan sa syudad. That's why ang always po nating sinasabi is, kung kaya ng CPP-NP-NDF na magtayo ng 22 schools sa loob ng Talaingod, bakit hindi kaya ng gobyerno?
Salupungan schools in Talaingod were shut down in 2019 due to supporting the communist terrorist group CPP and PANDF, which taught indigenous community youth to hate the government, join rallies, and some were recruited into armed struggle. For God and beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNA News, Davao City.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives should not allow convicted child abuser ACT Teachers Representative France Castro to remain in her position as a legislator. This challenge comes from former officials of the NTF-ELCAC to the Speaker of the House. Ina Mortel reports.
Good morning po, Doc Lorraine.
The Legal Cooperation Cluster of the National Task Force on Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-ELCAC, is currently studying the possibility of filing a complaint with the Ethics Committee of the House following the guilty verdict against ACT Teachers Representative France Castro. On Monday, the Tagum Regional Trial Court Branch 2 released the verdict against Castro, along with former Bayan Muna Party List Representative Satur Ocampo and 11 others for violating Section 10A of Republic Act No. 7610, or the Special Protection of Children Against Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act. The case stemmed from an incident in Talaingod, Davao del Norte, where Castro and Ocampo's group transported 14 minors who were all indigenous youth students from a Salupungan school. According to Attorney James Clifford Santos, spokesperson of the Legal Cooperation Cluster of ELCAC, this could be a basis for urging the House to take action against Castro.
Under the law, the House of Representatives, meron silang internal rules and procedure kasi dito, can discipline its own members.
This action, according to former spokesperson on IP concerns of ELCAC and now National Coordinator of the IPRA Center, Attorney Marlon Busantog, is the right thing to do.
Mag-file sa Ethics Committee ng Congress using the decision kasi ACT teachers supposedly represent the welfare of the children, but your sitting representative or congressman was convicted, not only accused but convicted of violating the principles of best interest of the child. Ibig sabihin, they had willingly and maliciously put the lives of the children in danger.
Busantog also cited the action taken by the House against expelled Congressman Arnie Teves for his prolonged absence amid the cases he was facing in the country.
Kung si Teves was removed from the role of the House of Representatives because of absenteeism and failure to obey yung nasa travel orders niya, ilaban mo to sa kaso ng convicted na sitting member na nag-abuso not only 1 or 2 or 3 but 14 children, not only children but lumad children.
Dr. Lorraine Badoy also issued a warning regarding Castro and leftist Congress members while calling the Speaker of the House to protect the lower house.
They're going to use Congress. They're going to use the Speaker of the House. Diba? Sila yung isasalang. They're going to besmirch the reputation and use the Speaker and the House of Representatives for their own benefit. Diba? So if the Speaker is listening now, this is really your call. You have to protect the House of which you head.
According to Busantog, the actions of the Speaker of the House will determine their true character.
Okay. Kung si Speaker sided with the abusers of children, convicted child abusers, maybe that is the same feather that he is wearing.
Meanwhile, Badoy called on the Filipino people to raise their awareness and unite against communist terrorist groups.
But you have to empower yourself because, like it or not, who placed them there in Congress? It's a Filipino people. Diba? So tayo din ang pwedeng magbawi niyan.
For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Ina Mortel, SMNA News.
Following the guilty verdict, ACT Teachers Representative France Castro in the child abuse case, the issue of Kabataan party lists' alleged involvement with the communist terrorist group CPP and PNDF has also resurfaced. Jade Calabroso for the details.
Majority Leader.
The Makabayan Bloc in Congress is composed of the ACT Teachers Party List, Gabriela Women's Party List, and Kabataan Party List. This group of congressmen has long been accused of being operatives of the terrorist group CPP and PANDF. On Monday, ACT Teachers Representative France Castro and former Bayan Muna Representative Satur Ocampo were found guilty of child abuse for transporting 14 indigenous children from Talaingod, Davao del Norte to Maco, Davao de Oro in 2018. This is a significant victory according to the spokesperson of the Legal Cooperation Cluster of NTF-ELCAC. When asked about Castro's colleagues in Congress, one of those mentioned by Attorney James Clifford Santos was the Kabataan Party List. A petition to cancel this leftist party list is still pending with the COMELEC, as according to Attorney Santos, Kabataan has filed multiple motions that seem like delaying tactics. However, he said they are merely afraid of being fully exposed.
Natatakot yung sila, Kabataan Party List, na mag-present ng evidence yung Republic dahil nga we really have a strong roster of witnesses, no, who will be testifying kung ano yung nangyayari sa mga party lists na associated sa CPP, NPA, NDF. And natatakot sila na makapagsalita yung mga to in the proper forum dahil it will be very damaging against them.
According to Attorney Marlon Bosantog, former official of NTF-ELCAC and now national coordinator of the IPRA Center, the evidence against the Kabataan Party List is strong.
There has been a plethora of evidence coming from the testimonies of witnesses under oath, even during congressional incident investigation, na yung party list nominees themselves, sila na they were selected because they were high-ranking member. And all nominees are high-ranking members of the CPP, NPA, NDF.
Bosantog also challenged the Kabataan Party List to take legal action if it is untrue that they are part of the terrorist CPP, NPA, NDF, as testified by former cadres.
Yan yung challenge ko sa kanila. If you think that FRs, si Almagabin, for example, Kabataan Party List, founder ng Anak ng Bayan, na precursor ng Kabataan Party List, bakit niyo file ng kaso?
Meanwhile, for Dr. Lorraine Badoy, former spokesperson of NTF-ELCAC, the day has come for the state's recognized enemies to feel the force of the law and to end the insurgency in the country.
Dumating ng araw nila, and it's wonderful to hear this, no, na for a case like this to have happened, because my faith in the judicial system is further strengthened. Because ang lakas ng loob nila na sila pa ang nagdedemanda gamitin ang sistema na ito, yung judicial process natin. So, we welcome it with open arms. We embrace it.
For God, my beloved Philippines, this has been Jade Calabroso, SMNA News.
A labor group wants President Bongbong Marcos Jr. to certify as urgent the proposed bill for 150 pesos in the minimum wage increase for private sector employees. Carla Villana reports.
There needs to be more than the 35 pesos provided by the regional wage boards or RWB to increase the wages of workers in the private sector. This was reiterated by Carlo Onyate, the legislative officer of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines or TUCP. Onyate pointed out that the price of gasoline increases almost every week, while the wages of the workers only increase every year. Earlier this month, the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board or RTWPB approved the 35 pesos hike in the daily minimum wage of workers in the National Capital Region, increasing it from 610 pesos to 645 pesos for the non-agriculture sector. The group's statement comes just days before Marcos' third State of the Nation address or SONA in July. At the same time, the group reiterated their appeal to Marcos to certify as urgent the proposed measure seeking a 150 pesos across the board wage increase for private sector employees. And this is also what the group wants to hear in the upcoming SONA of BBM.
Naniniwala kami na yung 150 pesos, no, kapag nilagay yan at naibanggit sa SONA na ma-certify urgent, ito yung pinaka number one, daingin ng bawat manggagawang Pilipino na sana marinig namin sa darating na State of the Nation address.
To recall, the said proposal is still pending in Congress. In addition, the labor group hopes they could talk to President Marcos to discuss pressing issues in the country, especially the lack of wages for Filipino workers. Expressing disappointment over the lack of engagement with labor groups since assuming office, Onyate stressed the importance of direct communication with the President to address labor concerns.
Kung kaya't yun, hindi masyado nakakarating, kung kaya't nananawagan kami dun sa meeting sa Pangulo. Kasi kagaya kay Pangulong Duterte, 5 o 6 na beses. Kay Pangulong Marcos, baka matapos na, 0 pa rin kami.
Onyate mentioned that two of their wish list during the previous SONA by Marcos Jr. were not mentioned. Still, they are hoping they will be addressed in the upcoming SONA.
Karamihan nung nabanggit nga dun sa nakarang SONA yung trabaho para sa bayan na ipasa na ho, ito yung mga issue sa employment. Ngunit hindi rin ho nabanggit dun yung pangunahing issue ng sahod. At yung pangalawa, yung pagpupulong ho namin, presidential dialogue.
For God and my beloved Philippines, Carla Abellana, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture is set to roll out African swine fever vaccines by September, but with limitation on its initial use. Kasaling Katarong reports.
The Philippine government is set to roll out African swine fever or ASF vaccines in September. In a pre-SONA briefing, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Laurel announced the forthcoming availability of ASF vaccines exclusively for government use first. The government use of ASF vaccines will be restricted for 6 months to assess its suitability for commercial rollout. Secretary Laurel's statement was made following the Food and Drug Administration's approval of ASF vaccines from Vietnam.
Yung FDA has finally given the go signal for government use ng vaccine, no, for pork. So the DA will be mag-procure ng vaccine.
The Secretary emphasized the agency's priority to provide these vaccines to low-income backyard farmers, particularly in red zones or highly infected areas.
DA has to bid it out, no? So hopefully, yung bureaucracy kalaban ko dito eh. So sana by September ma-roll out na yan at ma-vaccinate na yung mga growers ng ating mga backyard.
Earlier, the DA chief expressed confidence that these vaccines will address the ASF problem in the Philippines. ASF has caused severe damage to the swine industry, posing a contagious and deadly threat to both farmed and wild pigs. According to DA records in March, ASF resulted in nearly a 100% mortality rate among swine nationwide. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Kasaling Katarong, SMNI News.
The prices of basic goods, including rice and pork, have been rising continuously. Now, even the cost of chicken has surged. China Torno for the details.
Many poultry producers have reportedly lost the motivation to continue their business due to the severe losses. This was stated by the United Broiler Raisers Association or UBRA following the losses incurred by several industry players due to an oversupply of chicken last year. As a result, chicken prices in several markets in Metro Manila have been affected. Based on the monitoring of the Department of Agriculture, the price of chicken meat has continued to rise, reaching 250 pesos per kilogram. According to UBRA, the current chicken prices can be considered a record high.
Yung iba kasi, they try to take advantage ng supply situation. Kung sa isang palengke, wala talaga silang makuha at sila lang ang meron, susubukan talaga nila ng 250 kasi in comparison to pork na nasa 400 plus, mura pa rin ng 250 naman.
UBRA is not ruling out the possibility of price manipulation as the price should not exceed 220 to 230 pesos per kilo.
There is. It's always a fact na meron, especially kung nasaan located yung market, no?
Some players have also stopped producing chickens due to the high cost of feeds and other farm inputs, while some chickens do not reach the proper weight due to the hot weather caused by El Niño phenomenon. Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture said it is ready to assist the industry, saying that it is open to dialogue so industry players can voice out their concerns so that the DA could provide necessary interventions.
Sa livestock naman, may mga programa kami na tumulong sa mga layers natin, sa mga broilers in different kinds. May mga pagtulong sa kanila in terms of additional funds na nagagamitin nila, especially sa mga co-ops.
The DA is also conducting monitoring in major markets to check if the prices are still reasonable. Yusek Savellano encouraged consumers to look for other places to buy products at lower prices. Department of Agriculture also sees alternative feeds for livestock industry players that have cheaper prices.
Unang-una ang ginagawa namin sa livestock ngayon, tinitingnan namin yung mga alternative raw materials for feeds kasi yan ang nagpapamahal sa production yung pagkain ng ng mga animals natin. So if we can grow locally, yun ang tinitingnan namin, or ano yung mga alternatibong ingredients para mapamura natin. Then isa pa, kunyari sa baboy, meron kaming inspire yung fire program na binago namin para yung mga areas na pwedeng silang mag-aalaga ulit ng baboy, matutulungan namin.
For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
Indonesian president is in the UAE for a diplomatic visit. The outgoing president is set to end his second and final term as president in October. And this visit is said to be part of his mission to safeguard Indonesia's progress and his legacy. Saudi Arabia extends a multi-million-dollar contract designed to clear landmines in Yemen. Stay tuned for more news.
Abangan ng Banateros tuwing Lunes hanggang Huwebes, live dito lang sa SMNI.
Yan ang Banateros, walang inuurungan. Pag tama palakpakan, pag mali ay babanatan. Yan ang Banateros.
Kung akong tatanungin, kahit saang aspeto, gusto ko garantisado. Metikuloso akong tao, kaya gusto ko lahat maayos at sigurado. Lahat quality, yung hindi ako makukompromiso pero sulit ang presyo. Ganyan ang clean fuel, kaya dito panatag ang loob ko.
Magandang umaga po, sir. Full tank po.
Full tank. Gusto mo ng dekalidad na gasolina pero sulit ang halaga, mag-clean fuel ka.
Anything that tries your faith and puts you on the spot of deciding whether to continue or to stop is a fire. Whether it is persecution, whether it is loved ones, family, anything that will try your faith, whether to continue or to stop or to overcome or draw back, it is called fire. Now, salvation is based upon our building up on the foundation, whether silver, gold, stubble, precious stones. That means if it is gold, then it's genuine. It can go through the fire, but it will stay. When your confession of commitment and dedication is not true, when the fire goes through you, you will be burned. That's why I love my ministry. Because all of those that are able to overcome are certified 100% pure gold. Pure gold. Hypocrites have no place in the kingdom nation. Pretenders have no place in the kingdom nation. Plastics don't have place in the kingdom nation. Why? Because before we can be ushered into the new world, we should be tried by fire.
Back in the news, the Security Service is under pressure about its shortcomings following a failed assassination attempt against Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump during a rally in Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers blamed Joe Biden for inciting the assassination attempt against Trump. But was he really to blame? Let's hear more details from David Lira.
An investigation is underway to figure out why the U.S. Secret Service, tasked to protect the country's former and current presidents, failed big time when an attempt was made on Donald Trump's life this past weekend. Lawmakers have questioned how the shooter, armed with a rifle, was able to access the rooftop at the vantage point that should have been cleared early on and managed to shoot at Trump before law enforcement engaged. The rooftop was identified as a vulnerable spot before the event. The gunman, identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, let off 4 shots before he was shot and killed by the Secret Service, but his motive remains unknown. One of those bullets hit Trump in the ear. However, one spectator died and 2 others were critically injured.
I was about 70 yards from the stage. It was shock and despair. You think it's a nightmare. Everything's going in slow motion. You hear the shots, and there were 13 of them. The chaos, the scrambling. It took about 2 minutes till we found out that he's going to be okay and that they had shot the shooter. So there was a huge relief there.
A witness claimed he and others tried to warn the police about the looming danger, but their report seemed to have fallen on deaf ears. Secret Service Director Kimberly Seattle has been summoned to testify before a committee of the U.S. House of Representatives on the 22nd of July as the federal agency faces scrutiny for its failure to protect Trump. The FBI has taken over the investigation and consider it an act of domestic terrorism. President Joe Biden on Sunday condemned the attempted assassination of Trump and said he had ordered an independent review. On the same day, nearly a dozen lawmakers blamed Biden and Democrats at large for its shooting on Saturday evening, connecting the incident to the U.S. president's private phone call with donors last week, when he claimed it is time to put Trump in a bullseye. When pressed about this, Biden admitted that it was a mistake to use the word, but said that he intended to emphasize focusing on Trump and his actions, not using terms like crosshairs. It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him, focus on what he's doing. Meanwhile, Israel's President Benjamin Netanyahu, a closely ally of the United States, condemned the horrific assassination attempt as an attack on democracy.
Like all Israelis, my wife Sarah and I were shocked by the horrific assassination attempt on the life of President Donald Trump. This wasn't just an attack on Donald Trump. This was an attack on a candidate for the presidency of the United States. This was an attack on America. It was an attack on democracy. It was an attack on all the democracies. On behalf of myself, my family, the government and people of Israel, we wish President Trump a speedy recovery, continued good health, and continued strength.
The last assassination attempt against a U.S. president happened 43 years ago when the late Ronald Reagan was shot in the lung but survived. This has been David Lira, your global citizen correspondent for SMNI News.
In the meantime, former President Donald Trump made his first public appearance a few days after a failed assassination attempt against him during a rally in Pennsylvania. He has been officially declared as the Republican Party's nominee for the upcoming presidential race and also announced his running mate. Tricia Molina has the report.
See something that said
Donald Trump was seen in public for the first time following an attempt on his life this past weekend. The 78-year-old presidential candidate received a hero's welcome at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee on Monday, where he was seen sporting a thick bandage on his right ear. At the start of the 4-day convention, House Speaker Mike Johnson announced Trump as the Republican Party's official nominee for the 2024 presidential elections.
Let's make it official. Accordingly, the chair announces that President Donald J. Trump, having received a majority of the votes entitled to be cast at the convention, has been selected as the Republican Party nominee for President of the United States.
Johnson also declared Senator James David Vance of Ohio as Trump's official running mate for the much-awaited November elections. Vance, who was once a vocal critic, has now become the former president's close ally.
What a great night! Pursuant to Rule 40D of the rules of the Republican Party, I formally declare President Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance as the Republican nominees for President and Vice President of the United States.
The gunman who opened fire at a Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday was killed by the U.S. Security Service. The shooting spree also killed a former fire chief and left 2 others critically injured. In an exclusive interview, U.S. President Joe Biden admitted it was a mistake to use the word bullseye, a term he used to refer to Trump during a private phone call with donors days before the shooting incident. During the call, Biden was reported saying it's time to put Trump in a bullseye. In defense, he explained his intention to focus on Trump's policies and character. The bullseye saga caused nearly a dozen lawmakers to blame Biden and Democrats at large for the shooting incident on Saturday evening. Reporting, this has been Tricia Molina, SMNI News.
A man who died protecting his family in the attempt against former President Donald Trump has been recognized as a hero in Pennsylvania, USA. Let's hear more about this story with Chris ACQ.
Corey Comparator is the name of a voluntary fire chief in the city of Pennsylvania. Corey threw himself in front of his family using his body as a shield to protect his wife and 2 daughters. According to the police, Comparator lives in Savard, 19 kilometers from Butler, near Pittsburgh. He was an avid supporter of former President Donald Trump and was excited to join the rally. Josh Superior, the governor of Pennsylvania, said Corey died a hero.
That Corey died a hero. That Corey dove on his family to protect them last night at this rally. Corey was the very best of us. May his memory be a blessing.
Aside from Corey, 2 other individuals were critically injured in the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the gunman, identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, was shot dead by Secret Service officers assigned to Trump. I'm Chris ACQ, your global citizen correspondent for SMNI News.
Some overseas Filipino workers in Niigata, Japan gathered together in the Maisug Forum aimed at exposing and spreading awareness of the real situation in the Philippines under the current administration. Let's hear more details from Guy Saito.
Overseas Filipino workers residing in Nagaoka, a city in Japan's Niigata Prefecture, held a forum at Aure City Hall Plaza on July 15th. The initiative was a call for OFWs to be more concerned about the true situation back home under the present administration. Despite their busy schedule, some overseas Filipino workers from the Japanese city of Niigata spared time to attend the Maysug Forum aimed at spreading awareness of what's truly happening in the country. Among those who attended the forum were teachers from PETJ, or Philippine Education of Technology in Japan, engineers and factory workers. The forum was organized by the Maysug Japan chapter to educate fellow Filipinos about transparency, accountability, peace, and security. Some of the speakers who gave their opinions via Zoom were former presidential spokesperson Attorney Harry Roque, former Undersecretary and ELCAC anchor Dr. Rain Badoy, Attorney Annalyn Duguy, Attorney Glenn Chung, and blogger Miss Maharlika. OFWs also had the opportunity to speak out and freely ask questions to the speakers.
Kami dito sa Japan is minsan lang kaming nagkasama-sama pero marami kaming natutunan, marami kaming nalalaman at nakapag-isip kami kung ano ang magiging ambag namin bilang isang Pilipino na malayo sa ating bansa.
Ang rate ko sa Marcos government from 1 to 10, I will give them 1. Bakit? Dahil sa nakikita ko yung walang pagbabago sa ating bansa. Ang akala natin na siya yung mag-aangat sa ating ekonomiya, bagkus ito pa rin ay wala pa rin pagbabago.
Most of the attendees supported BBM in the 2022 presidential elections with the hope that BBM will continue the political will of the Duterte administration. OFWs also expressed their gratitude to SMNI for being a trustworthy news agency and for its contribution for nation building.
Maraming salamat, of course, sa pagbibigay liwanag sa mga pag-iisip ng mga tao dito sa probinsya. Kasi kailangan namin ng edukasyon katulad nito. Okay, maraming salamat sa SMNI, sa Maisog Tokyo, at sa mga speakers na magjo-join sa araw na ito. Maraming salamat.
Una po, gusto ko rin po magpasalamat pala sa SMNI kasi po nagkakaroon po tayo ng ganitong platform na makita at marinig tayo ng mga kababayan natin sa iba't ibang bahagi ng mundo.
In the end, OFWs expressed their satisfaction with the amount of enlightenment they have received during the forum. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Guy Saito, SMNI News.
Saudi Arabia extended a crucial contract designed to clear landmines in Yemen. Melchizedek Cadiz reports.
Project Mazam, a humanitarian landmine clearance project in Yemen, have been extended for another year. The extended contract reportedly cost $35.9 million. The Saudi King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center, or KS Relief, announced the extension of the project. The renewal of the contract signifies the humanitarian agency's commitment to help completing the decontamination of mines across Yemen that claimed the lives of defenseless civilians, causing them permanent injuries and disabilities. The mines have killed thousands of civilians in many governorates since the start of the war in March 2015. The war started after the Houthi rebels took control of the capital Sana'a and several governorates. The conflict intensified after an Arab military coalition led by Saudi Arabia intervened to confront the Houthis and showed support to the forces loyal to the internationally recognized government. The initiative focuses on dismantling these mines and eliminating the threats they pose to the citizens of Yemen. Saudi Arabia's Project Mazam has been able to clear 450,919 mines and various missiles. Yemeni teams were also trained to clear mines. Reporting from Kuwait, I am Melchizedek Cadiz, your global citizen correspondent for God and for our beloved country, the Philippines.
The President of the United Arab Emirates welcomed the President of Indonesia for a 2-day state visit. Grater Womori will tell us more.
Indonesia's outgoing President Joko Widodo visited the UAE before his stepping down to end his second and final term as president in October. The 2-day visit started on Tuesday. Widodo was expected to meet UAE President His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan to discuss strengthening bilateral ties in various sectors. The Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement signed between the UAE and Indonesia will be part of the agenda. The trade deal was signed in July 2022 and took effect in August 2023. Sheikh Mohammed hailed the trade deal as a new era of increased trade, investment, and economic cooperation between their countries. The agreement is anticipated to boost the value of bilateral non-oil trade from $4.8 billion to more than $10 billion within 5 years of implementation and raise the combined value of trade in services between the two nations to $630 million by 2030. Additionally, more than 80% of UAE exports to Indonesia are exempt from customs duties since it took effect last year. Reporting from Dubai, I'm Gratero Omor, your global citizen correspondent for SMNI News Channel.
The president of South Korea said that the government upgraded its relations with the United States to nuclear-based in the face of deepening military cooperations between North Korea and Russia. Kim Sang has the details.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol confirmed that relations with the United States will now be based on a nuclear alliance. U.S. nuclear assets will be deployed to missions on the Korean Peninsula, whether in wartime or peacetime, according to Yoon. U.S. assets such as aircraft carriers, a B-52 nuclear bomber, and a nuclear ballistic missile submarine are regularly deployed to the Korean Peninsula while Seoul launched expanded joint military drills with American troops. The nuclear deterrence guidelines authorized by Yoon and U.S. President Joe Biden on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Washington, D.C. last week have angered North Korea, calling it a reckless, provocative act. Tensions between the two Koreas escalated following Russian President Vladimir Putin's historic visit to North Korea in June, which resulted in the signing of multiple agreements, including a defense treaty that vowed mutual aid if either country is attacked. Reporting from South Korea, this is Kim Sung, your global citizen correspondent for God in our beloved country, the Philippines.
After passing Daniel Alves, Messi became the football player with most titles in history. Andres Souza has the story.
After winning the Copa America, Lionel Messi became the player with the most titles in the history of football. Even though he was injured and on the bench, Messi watched his team score the final goal, securing their victory. With this, he won his 45th trophy, marking a milestone in his career, and surpassing Brazilian Daniel Alves, who has 44 trophies. Messi has now achieved 5 major titles with Argentina, including 2 Copa America victories, 1 World Cup, 1 Finalissima, and 1 Olympic gold medal. It's also worth remembering that Argentina won the World Cup with a decisive goal scored by Messi. I'm Andre de Souza, your global citizen correspondent for SMNI News.
A teenager in Singapore became the youngest person to be issued restriction orders by the government after he was self-radicalized due to the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. Anissa de Guzman has the story.
A 14-year-old student was issued a restriction order under the Internal Security Act in Singapore after attempting to organize pro-Hamas attacks and even try to brainwash his classmates. The self-radicalized boy, who was not identified by authorities, allegedly started a recruitment process online to organize pro-Hamas attacks. He was hoping to recruit 60 to 100 people to carry out attacks in Singapore. The boy also tried to brainwash his classmates but failed. The teenage student was radicalized online as the result of the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. He also expressed willingness to fight for the prophesied Muslim group Black Flag Army. A 33-year-old female manager and former public servant who was a staunch supporter of the Iran-backed Axis of Resistance was also issued a restriction order by the Singaporean government. The Axis of Resistance is a network of Islamist, militant, and terrorist organizations including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis that stage attacks against Israelis. The two Singaporeans have been radicalized separately in just a few months. Reporting from Thailand, I'm Anissa de Guzman, your global citizen correspondent for God in our beloved country, the Philippines.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the Son. Endurance is forged in the fires of adversity. And that's all for this edition. For more news update, you may visit smnichannel.com or follow us in our official social media accounts on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and Country, I'm Frederico Velloso, and this is Newsline World.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on the notification bell to keep you up to date. Also visit our official social media accounts and join our community on Viber and Telegram.